Alright everyone, Adam here. Today's topic is one that I think I've talked about it quite a bit before, but now I'm going to go into more specifics than I have in the past. So the number one thing is, how do I motivate myself? How do I get myself to, stick to some kind of fitness plan? And the problem that most people encounter is that they find it really hard. And there's a lot of potential reasons for that, but I think that one of the biggest problems is that people jump in and try and do way too much way too quickly. So if you look at something like fitness, you've got a lot of different components. You've got a strength training program, you've got a cardiovascular program, you've got to change your diet, and that means focusing on, what you're eating and maybe cooking for yourself instead of eating out or, whatever. You've got to make sure that you're drinking enough water, you've got to make sure that you're going to sleep. Now, that's a lot of different things. And if you're trying to change a lot of different stuff in your life at once, that usually it can work out sometimes. Some people, it's kind of like how some people can certainly, quit cold turkey on cigarettes or booze or, whatever it is that is impacting their life. But at the same time, that's very hard. And people realize that. And so the problem is that people don't know how to ease themselves into fitness. They don't know how to make smaller incremental decisions that add up over time, because the only thing that they know is, I've got to do everything all at once. And that's usually, again, a bad idea. That idea usually leads to failure, because you try too many different things at once, and then, it's overwhelming, it's too much, and then, you can't succeed. Now, I've absolutely had a lot of clients in the past that come to me and they say, I want to lose weight. And I say, no, I'm not going to make you, I'm not going to do that for you. I'm not going to do that right now. And, okay, why? Well, because they're not ready for it yet. If you take someone who's never exercised before, has never dieted before, has never, done any of that before, then what, they don't have any point of reference. It's going to be crazy hard to do all those things at once. So I say, okay, focus on, for the first month or two, just nailing down your exercise. And then the second month, okay, just don't even worry about diet yet. Just make sure you're writing down everything that you eat, so you're tracking everything you eat. Tracking is a skill in and of itself. Month 3, okay, you got that down. Now let's focus on making some minor changes. Maybe we cut out a glass of wine here and there. Maybe we cut out some snacking, whatever. And the point is that you make these incremental changes, and over time they do lead to success. It's a lot easier to make changes when you're making these tiny little incremental changes instead of trying to do everything all at once. And the thing, too, is that our habits are all interconnected. All kinds of habits, are stuck together. So if you, like, for example, if you're used to getting, maybe only 4, 5, 6 hours of sleep a night, then that's interconnected to your other habits because you're spending that other time doing something else, watching TV, playing on the computer, whatever. And so if I say, okay, you need to get more sleep, well, it's got to come from somewhere, right? So, maybe you got to spend less time goofing around on the computer. Okay, well, maybe you have a long day at work and, you need some amount of goofing around on the computer to just not go bonkers. So, it's all about balancing that. All that stuff is interconnected. And so it can be really easy to make huge changes when there's existing big changes in your life. So say you take on a new job or a significantly different work schedule, or let's say you move across the country, or let's say, there's some kind of big traumatic event in your life. Anything big that shakes things up can actually, it can also be a huge opportunity because you don't have a new set of habits yet. You have to create an entirely new set of habits from scratch and start over. And so you can actually, you can make some pretty big changes right then because, again, you're not trying to overwrite existing habits. If you're trying to do too much at once, a huge problem is that you're having to overwrite a huge amount of existing habits at once. But when you are temporarily in a situation in which your habits have been broken up for some reason, then that's a huge opportunity to make new habits and again, to make habits that are, maybe more productive for your lifestyle goals. Now, unfortunately, of course, those kinds of things don't just happen. It's not like I'm, recommending that you quit your job or move across the country just so that you can, pick up a new exercise routine. Instead, for most people, it's that you have to make these smaller, more incremental changes. And so that means changing one thing at a time. that means changing one small thing, and then, you know, tracking it, making some kind of way to make sure that you're actually doing it. And then over time, you are focusing on, you know, okay, well, that one thing changed, now let's do a second thing. Okay, that second thing I managed to change, now let's do a third thing. And it doesn't have to be 100%, you know, it's not like, you know, if my first thing is just, you know, exercise 4 days a week, that doesn't mean I have to exercise 4 days a week every week like clockwork. But as long as I'm able to do that 80-90% of the time, 80-90% of the weeks, then, you know, that's okay. Then that's probably, you know, enough to move on to building a new habit. And the thing is that these habits are all, you know, again, all of your habits are interconnected. So once you make one change, you find it easier and easier to make another change, another change, another change. And, you know, eventually you can get to the point where, theoretically, you know, you're someone like me who's, you know, these habits have been dialed in for a very long time for me. And I can do things like push for, you know, stretch goals, like, you know, competing in a certain competition, making, you know, some kind of big change in your body, etc. Those kinds of stretch goals, you know, come later after you've mastered a lot of the basics, honestly. But, again, it's something that if you make those incremental changes, then you can make bigger changes down the line. You can make, you know, potentially more stressful or more difficult changes because, again, you've got this massive load of other habits to help back you up. So that is honestly the biggest focus in terms of psychology, in terms of how I work with my clients, how I try and help my clients get results, is I just focus on, okay, what small thing can we change right now? And how can we, you know, push forward from that? And sometimes, you know, there's some kind of limitations. There's things that make it more difficult. There's things that, you know, disadvantage you relative to other people. So maybe it's best, you know, if for example, you have a really hard time working out at first, and you're looking to get in shape, well, maybe diet should be your first step. You know, maybe that should be your first focus if exercise is relatively more hard for you. And then, yeah, you know, maybe you can add exercise in later on, or, you know, whatever. You know, maybe add in just a very small amount of exercise and then work forward from there, whatever it is. But again, try and pick just one thing at a time. A lot of people try and do way too much. I talk about this all the time. You know, a lot of people, they try and do way too much in terms of their exercises too. They do like 30 different exercises, and I'm like, okay, well, why are you doing these 30 exercises? They couldn't tell you. You know, it's, oh, I heard this was a good exercise. I hate that phrase, good exercise. It's so silly. I'll go into a whole other video about that in like 5 minutes when I make a new video. But yeah, it's silly. So, that is it for today. As always, like, comment, share, tell me what you want to see in future videos. I will talk to you guys next time. Have a good night.